Hello, vinyl community. Elliot here, Lazy Dawgs Records, and I wanted to get in on the quarantine edition of the vinyl tag that's going around now. And so I'll jump right into it because this is my third attempt at doing this because it kept running real long. And I said, nobody wants to watch, me talking for that long. So first, what are we listening to in the background? The Buzzard Rock String Band out of Kentucky. A song called I've Got the Blues from My Kentucky Home, sung with great success by. And this is on June Apple Records, recordings. First time I've heard it, know nothing about them. It sounds good though, and the record plays very well. Okay. Question number one was your favorite home state record. Well, there's so many to pick from. I live in North Carolina, and I'll go with that band that it was, the first band I followed, and as soon as I got old enough to go out to hear live music at clubs, this was the band we went to see, and it is, of course, is the Super Grit Cowboy Band out of Hood Swamp, North Carolina, which is over there somewhere near Kinston, led by Clyde Maddox, and for this album also Bill Lyerly. And they're still around today. There's Clyde right there, and Clyde's 83 or 84 years old. Went and saw him play the other day. He plays 4 nights a week. Great band. A lot of great artists came through Super Grit during their career, and that's a really good album. Okay, number 2, highly recommended. I highly recommend this album from John Starling, and this is called Waiting on a Southern Train. It's on Sugar Hill Records. John Starling was the lead singer for the Seldom Seen for many years. He's also a surgeon. He passed away in 2019. He was a surgeon. He could do 2 things at one time. He could be a major musician on the DC area bluegrass circuit, and at the same time be a working surgeon in the DC area. So hats off to John Starling. That's a really great album. He's got 2 solo albums, either one of which, Long Time Gone is the other one, either one of which I highly recommend. Okay, tip for beginners. My biggest tip for beginners is don't obsess on jacket condition. Folks, you don't play the jacket, you play the record. If you can find records in good playing condition, don't worry about the jacket. You can work on the jacket, clean it up. It just shows that it was loved for a long time by somebody, and you can often get them a lot cheaper because there are some people that obsess about jacket condition. If that jacket isn't pristine, they don't want it, which is crazy talk to me. So you can find a lot of good music, a lot of good albums for a more reasonable price, and you can also talk some people down a little bit. Hey, yeah, okay, but look at the condition of the jacket. It's pretty rough shape, and you can get a lot of good music. That's where I get most of my classic rock music, because people want too much for classic rock music. Crazy. But I've gotten a lot of albums like Tommy, Quadrophenia, a couple of them that I think of, Leon Live, records like that, because the jackets were in rough condition. I've gotten them for very reasonable prices. Okay, so that's a good tip. Okay, what got you deeper into music? It would be this album. When I was so very formidable, 13, 14, 15 years old, Allman Brothers Band, live at Fillmore East. Why? Because this is what brought me into the blues. They credit all the songwriters, blues songwriters, like T-Bone Walker and Elmore James, people like that. They name drop them on this album. And Blind Willie McTell, Statesboro Blues. And that led me down that rabbit hole into the acoustic blues, into the electric blues from Chicago and Texas, LA, all that sort of stuff. So I mean, I'm still running through that rabbit hole finding stuff. So this album, I know a lot of like Rolling Stones records, Cream records, things like that did that for a lot of people as well. Okay, let's see. An obscure record. Okay, I doubt many people have seen this. It's on LSI. It's a 7-inch EP from Steve Earle and the Dukes, and it's called Pink and Black. It's got 4 songs on it: Nothing But You, Continental Trailways Blues, Squeeze Me In, My Baby Worships Me, and it's produced by Roy Day. And this was put out just a year or two before he hit it big with Guitar Town. I don't know how many were made, but not many. So that's something I always treasure right there. And let's see, completist. Are you a completist? Well, in some cases. I've tried to acquire all of Delbert McClinton's albums, and I think I've got them all now. This is just a few of them I just grabbed to show. I think I've got all of Delbert McClinton's. I love Delbert McClinton. And I don't have to acquire any of these in the Renaissance of vinyl, because I've got double copies of a lot of these. David Allan Coe. I've got all David Allan Coe's vinyl records, except the pornographic record that he put out. And, but all his major label releases, I've got them all. I was a big David Allan Coe fan, and we can talk about Coe, and usually there's not a whole lot good you can say about him, but he put out some really good music in the mid to late 70s into the mid 80s. Okay, and then next was the second album is better. This is a close one. This was a great album, debut album from the Amazing Rhythm Aces, Stacked Deck. Excellent album. It had some great songs on it. It's got The Beautiful Lie, Hit the Nail on the Head, Who Will Your Next Fool Be? Amazing Grace used to be her favorite song. Emma Jean, that's probably my favorite song on this album. Third Rate Romance, which became a hit single for them. But by just a hair, I think their second album, Too Stuffed to Jump, is better to me. And don't you love that album cover? That is a creative album cover. Okay. And this one's got some great music on it too. The End Is Not in Sight, with quotation marks, or parentheses, I should say, the cowboy song. Same Old Me, Typical American Boy. That's a really good one. Let's see, I'll Be Gone, A Little Italian Rag. Just a two great albums. But I'll give Too Stuffed to Jump just the lead by a hair. Okay, frog hair. Okay, Whack-A-Mole. Okay, here we go. Now I'm gonna try not to cheat. Let's see. Who knows what I'm gonna come up with? I know where I am in the alphabet here. More or less, not exactly. Okay, interesting. This is, when I got this, I didn't know what I had. I bought this at a thrift store. Anybody know this album? I'm sure the jazz folks do. This is Stanley Turrentine. I guess this is the way to show it. Sugar. And it's from 1971 on CTI Records. And it's got Ron Carter playing bass on it. George Benson and Freddie Hubbard are on this album. Stanley Turrentine, Sugar. Let's see, is that a gatefold? I believe it is. I didn't know what I had when I got it, but I've learned about Stanley Turrentine and Ron Carter and all those guys. I knew who George Benson was. Okay. But, kind of I won't say disturbing, but cover's not my favorite. Not that one. that one. Let's see. Feet smelly. Okay. So that's whack-a-mole. Okay. Played the most. Okay, I'm 61 years old. So we'll go back. What have I played the most? I played this album, Eric Clapton, 461 Ocean Boulevard. I consider it his best album, bar none. I know most people won't agree with me. They'll say one of the Wheels on Fire or Blind Faith or something like that. But to me, this solo album is my favorite of all time. And I play that a lot. Have all the time. And this album, John Hartford, Mark Twain. I love this album. In fact, that's what's in my CD player in my car right now, playing. John Hartford. It's just him and a banjo and fiddle playing on it's got a sheet of plywood with a mic on it, and he's tapping out, dancing the rhythm while he plays. Great album. Okay. And let's see. Album with crazy story. Okay, I don't know how crazy it is, but I think it's interesting. Willie Nelson was struggling to make it. He was a well-regarded songwriter, but he couldn't make it as a performer. He signed with Atlantic Records when Atlantic decided to go to Nashville and try their hand at country, and put out 2 really good albums on Atlantic. Jerry Wexler, I believe, produced at least one of these. Let's see, David Briggs and Arth Martin did this one. But it's a Shotgun Willie. And let's see, did Jerry Wexler produce this one? Yep. And this is Phases and Stages. Kind of a concept album about divorce. But then the record label, the division in for Atlantic Records in Nashville decided they were going to cut their losses. It wasn't working, trying to compete in Nashville anymore. So they closed down their Nashville division. And so Willie's left without, after a couple of fairly successful endeavors, he's left with nothing. No record label. So his manager goes to Columbia Records, gets him a contract, and he produces this album. He had moved to Austin by then, and that freedom living in Austin amongst the cowboys and the hippies and away from the executives helped him take an old song by the Red-Headed Stranger that he remembered from his DJing days in Fort Worth, and take that and from around that create a concept album. They went in studio, only took them like Garland, Texas, to a studio. It took them like 10 days. Very minimalistic. Willie's acoustic guitar, his sister Bobby's piano, some harmonica from Mickey, and just a bass and not a lot more. And they came out with this album, and they presented it to Columbia Records, I guess in New York, and they're going, "You can't put that out. What is that? That's awful." They said, "It sounds like a demo tape." I said, "No, this is what we want to put out." And they didn't want to put it out. But here's the kicker. His manager, when he got Willie the deal with Columbia, got him full artistic control, which was unheard of in 1974, 75, virtually unheard of. And so they had to put it out. They knew it was going to be a flop. Nope. That's what made Willie right there. And from then on, it was success after success. Okay, let's see. Pet peeves. My pet peeve is people that get so obsessed with saying, "Oh, this act's just a ripoff on this act," or something like that. Yeah, artists borrow from each other, and you don't want to be a blatant copier, but everybody copies. Everybody, nothing happens in a vacuum. Everything is based on what came before it. And, you know, it's not like Stevie Ray Vaughan invented those guitar licks. Those guitar licks were based on what he learned from listening to Albert King records and, you know, other artists. And, you know, artists don't just create out of, you know, out of nothing. So, another example, the band America comes out and everybody puts them down because they say, oh, Horse with No Name just sounds like a poor man's Neil Young. Uh, America's a lot more than that. Yeah, there was a lot of what Neil Young did during one little portion of his career, one time. Sure, you can hear some of that, but you can't criticize somebody for being influenced by a great artist. And they put out a lot of great music. America did, but they always had that little stigma attached to them. It's almost like, you know, where's the rule that says you can't have tight harmonies and an acoustic bass sound if you're not Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and sometimes Young? Crazy talk. So, you know, and, you know, I love Bob Dylan. Everybody puts Bob Dylan up there on the pedestal, though. But do you know, if you talk to somebody that was say got a PhD, that's an expert in, say, English literature, 18th century English or 19th century English literature, things like that, they'll take Dylan's lyrics and they'll identify little turns of phrase and expressions and little bits and pieces that come from literature from that period or from, you know, some other time. He doesn't come up with this stuff just out of nothing. He was a very well-read person, and that poetry he reads, and the influence. Look at the influence of Woody Guthrie on Dylan, and heck, Woody Guthrie made, you know, what he did was take bits and pieces of other people's music and put them together and you know, call it his own. Same thing with the Carter family. What did they do? They went out and found songs. They were song catchers and wrote them up and played them and took credit for them. So you should give songwriting credit to artists that, you know, but still, it's not as you know, don't find fault in everybody, because if you start finding fault in all these artists, guess what? The ones you value and hold sacred, you may find out, you know, their hands aren't clean either. But it's not a matter of the hands being clean or not. It's a matter of, you know, everybody borrows and takes and gives back and forth and exchanges one to the other. Okay, let's see. Surprised I'd like. I like classical music. Might be surprised by that, but I especially like string ensembles and stuff. But one of the best concerts I ever went to was Hilary Hahn and the North Carolina Symphony. Oh man, that lady can play a violin. And let's see, record from the year you were born. I was born in 1958. So there's Duke Ellington and his orchestra, Newport, 1958. And also, in a rockabilly pop sense, how about Ricky Nelson, still called Ricky there, on Imperial, 1958. And let's see, a 10-inch. I had a bunch here, but in the interest of time, I'll just see which one I pull out. Okay, one of my mama's records. Here is Columbia Records, 78. Frank Sinatra. On this side, it's Ever Homeward, and on the other side is I've Got a Crush on You. So when I think of 10-inch records, I think of 78s. And interesting fact about an album, okay? Remember this album, the soundtrack from Deliverance, Dueling Banjos, and it's with original soundtrack of Deliverance, featuring additional music performed by Eric Weisberg and Steve Mandel. It's actually an album from earlier that they had done with just adding dueling banjos on here. But the interesting fact about this is the record label gave Eric Weisberg songwriting credit for dueling banjos, or called it traditional and gave him arranging credit. Actually, this man wrote dueling banjos. It was actually called dueling guitars, and recorded it years earlier with this man, Don Reno, playing the banjo. And he called him up and said, "Hey, you stole my song." They thought he was some country bumpkin from the Carolinas. He's from South Carolina. He's passed away now, had a real high-pitched voice, real sweet voice. And they thought he was just some bumpkin from Carolina, South Carolina. He lived in North Carolina at the time. And they were fooled. They were mistaken. They laughed at him and thought they could, get rid of him with their lawyers. He had his own lawyers too. He was a very successful businessman in the Charlotte area. And somebody asked him one time, how did that lawsuit turn out? And he had a picture of his yacht in his office. And the way he would answer that is he'd just point at that yacht and smile. Okay, and my favorite, animals on the cover. You know I love dogs. So, from 1968, Mother Earth. And there is Tracy Nelson with her dog in 1968. But look. "1970 Mother Earth, Satisfied." There's Tracy Nelson with that same dog 2 years later. And 1973, Tracy Nelson's got her name on the cover, but it's still kind of Mother Earth, but they're a backing band now. And there she is with the same dog. He's got a little age on him there. Don't you just love that? All right. So, let's see. Where are we? Crazy artwork. Neon Parks, I believe, is his name. He did all the artwork on virtually all, if not all, the Little Feat albums. I like that one. That's Feet Don't Fail Me Now. There's the last record album. Great artwork. There's one of their latter day albums, representing the Mamba. Another one of their later albums, Let It Roll. Great albums. Great album artwork. And let's see, Good and Cheap. All right, one of the best albums you'll ever get, and it's a debut album. You can buy this for $1 all day long. Ricky Lee Jones. Why the people don't value this record for, the $25, $50 record, I don't know. I guess there's so many of them. But still, that is a great, great album. Anybody out there starting your collection, you need to include this album in your collection. You'll love it. Chuck E's in Love on Saturday afternoons in 1963. Last Chance Texaco, Danny's All-Star Joint. Oh, kind of a jazz singer, if you're not familiar with Ricky Lee Jones. She's kind of a jazz singer. All right, and Acquired Taste. I thought about maybe some old-time music, maybe, like for a lot of people, being Acquired Taste, and maybe some pre-30s blues, country blues, Delta blues, like Sun House. And I think that's kind of Acquired Taste for a lot of people. Sun House and Charlie Patton. But I think that some of the jazz artists, I think, are really an Acquired Taste. there is Thelonious Monk, Straight No Chaser. And, you know, Thelonious Monk, you really have to listen for a while to when you first hear that, or a lot of us, I think, when you first hear it, you're going, wait, he's hitting the wrong notes. But he's intentionally hitting the wrong notes. So, you know, you have to really work your way into it, I think. Okay, and finally, the most recent find. Well, of course, we're quarantined. So these are records that I've ordered from Discogs. And I'm trying to build up my Nighthawks collection. That's their first album. There's another Nighthawks record. Yet another Nighthawks record. So I got 4 Nighthawks records to go with the other Nighthawks records I have. I may not have all of them now, but I've got about 8 or 9 of them. That's almost all of them, if not all of them. So that's my Vinyl Tag Quarantine Edition. I hope, you know, if you stuck with me this long, you know, I hope you got something out of it. And I'll just say, everybody, be kind to your neighbors, because we're all neighbors here, folks. Take care.